Hello, this is Carrie from Kenny Brown Performance, and you are watching the Kenny Brown. Oh, excuse me, I'm changing the name of it a little bit. The Cars and Coffee with Kenny Brown show. How does that sound? Still include his name in that because he's still very present in what we're going to be sharing. Today we have an exciting guest. We have Tony Gonyon from HP Tuners and Tuners Inc., and he is going to be sharing with you how to, I'll put this right up here. There you go. How to, his tips and tricks on increasing fuel efficiency in your truck or tow vehicle. And it's going to be, by popular demand, we're going to be sharing his 5 critical steps to building your performance car. Now, who is in the audience for us? Let's see who's there. Fred Francher, good to hear from you. I hear you're having fun with your car. Fred had his car here about a month ago. We did a big performance upgrade on it he has a Shelby GT, and we did a full Kenny Brown suspension system on it and bare Kenny Brown brakes. So it was a really good project, and he's enjoying that. Joe Johnson, good to see you. Calvin Goring, always great to see you. Calvin, you need to call us sometime. Just fill us in as far as what you're up to. And there is Brad. Brad is with us. So, and we are waiting for Tony to come on, but while we're waiting for him, we have a special surprise for you tonight, today. Brad, you're not helping me much. And you're letting me fall over my tongue all by myself. And then we also are going to be playing Kenny's video right now, and then we'll be open for questions after Tony finishes. So the way we're going to be going is we're going to listen to Kenny first, his 5 critical steps to building your performance car. Then Brad has something special to share, and then we'll have Tony on with questions. So we look forward to a very good show. And it's great to see everybody here, right? You're here. Let's see. Oh, Christopher's here from Bulgaria. Great. Wonderful to see all of you. And now we are simulcasting live on both YouTube, on the Kenny Brown Performance Facebook page, and also on the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society page. If you haven't signed up for that, you may want to just Google Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society group, and you have to fill out just a couple of questions on what kind of car you have, and then we'll let you into the group. There's a lot of really interesting information in there and a really cool community, so I recommend that you join that. Okay, Brad, let's play Kenny's video here. Are you ready?
Okay. Yep, I'm ready.
Okay.
Just a second. I also wanted to note that Christopher from Bulgaria is with us today as well. Okay.
Okay, great. Christopher, we've introduced you twice. Good to have you here.
Okay, sorry. All right, here we
go. Here's the 5 critical things that we talk about in performance planning. And planning is so important. If you're going to go on a trip, and today all you got to do is talk to your phone and tell you where you want to go, and poof, all of a sudden, you know, the whole route's planned out through the nav. But let's say pre-nav, if you wanted to go someplace, you have to pull out a map and say, okay, I'm going to go here and figure out the best way to get there. Well, performance planning on a car is absolutely no different, because the number one thing in performance planning is start with the end in mind. You have to know where you're going to end up and work backwards from there. Anytime I build a new car, a new platform, I always envision the entire car first. What's it going to be? And then from there in my mind, I kind of work backwards on the steps we need to do to get to that point. The same thing. I mean, if you're going to do a car, then your performance planning, think about where you want to be ultimately. And then you break it into steps or years or whatever. But you need to start with where you want to be, because if you don't, you may do something and make an update, and all of a sudden for the next step, well, you got to take that off and put something else on. So if you're planning out, then everything you put on, you don't have to back up and go backwards. The next thing is decide whether you're going to build a street car, a track car, or a race car. because the criteria on components are not completely different, but very different from each of those. Because you don't want to put race car stuff on a street car, and you don't want to put street car stuff on a race car. So you have to make your mind up which it's going to be. And the track car stuff kind of in the middle. And in the track car, even, you have to figure out, is it a little street and a lot of track, or a lot of street and a little track? Because again, then all the components are different. And then you need to start. The next one is, I can't read my writing. Ever since I type so much on the computer, I go to write stuff, I can't even understand my own writing. It's kind of, I think writing before long is going to be a lost art. Expectations and budget. Make sure your budget and expectations are aligned. A lot of times people have these great ideas on what they want to do. They'll call in and get one of my 15 minutes, and they'll say they want this, and what's the best way to go about it? And then I say, well, do you have any idea what that's going to cost? And as soon as I start talking about what they just outlined, all of a sudden, a lot of people go numb because they really didn't think that far ahead as far as their budget and their expectations. So get your budget and expectations in line. That's another advantage of having one of my 15-minute consults is if you've got a budget and an idea, a plan, or where you want to be, will help you work backwards from there. So if you get the best route, the most cost effective, so you don't have to redo things. The next one is stick with a proven philosophy. Like my philosophy is completely different than anybody else in the aftermarket in motorsports or in the Mustang world. Whether you stick with mine, or if there's somebody else out there that you like the philosophy, what they do, stick with it. Don't mix and match. The worst calls I get is people call in and the car really doesn't work very well, and they start listing out the parts, and they got this component here, and springs there, shocks there, control arms here. They get everybody's parts on there. As soon as you start putting a whole bunch of parts from a whole bunch of different places, what you're doing is, you might not realize it, but you are on your very own R&D program. And because you're going to have to find out how all that works together. When people call in, they got all that stuff. I mean, I don't have good answers because I don't know how all that stuff works together, because I've never done it. With mine, mine's philosophy is pretty straightforward. The whole suspension system we do now started in 1986, actually 87, with the championship Saline cars, and it's progressed to the point it is, up to actually AGS 4.5 now for S197s. So, stick with a philosophy, whether it's mine or somebody else's, because if you stick with, if it's like, another company and you like them, you've had a relationship with them before, stick with them. Because if you have a problem, they're going to be able to tell you how to fix it. If you're working with my philosophy, my stuff, if you have a problem, we're going to be able to tell you how to work through it. And then the last is choose your parts carefully. The worst thing you want to do is you don't want the cheapest parts ever. Because the cheapest parts are the most expensive. And if you long term, cheap parts are expensive. Choose your parts. Like if you're using my philosophy, try to get everything from this program. If you like somebody else, try to get all your parts from them, and just don't get seduced by all these online sites where you got all these different parts to choose from. Try to stick with somebody that can tell you what to do. So anyway, that's kind of like the 5 critical steps. And I think I mentioned through here, if you really want help, I've got my 15-minute consults, which we do quite a bit of, and they're very, very popular. People are pretty blown away to actually take the time to talk to them and share real information, not something somebody read on the internet or heard. And what we ended up doing is, this is kind of, Cari gave me this is kind of an example we did for Joe Doe. We took the name out to protect the innocent, and also the phone number. But this was like for an 18 GT, and I don't know if you can see this. We just go down, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and because a lot of people, for budget considerations, can't do it all at once. So I'll come up with a plan, and we'll put it in a logical format, so you can actually do step 1, and then when you can afford it, step 2, and just go all the way down. And that way you don't have to back up and redo. You're using a plan, you're working to a plan. And when you put stuff on, it's going to work with the next stuff you put on and the next stuff you put on. So performance planning is super critical. And like I say, my 15-minute consults, I will do the best I can to get you on the right path.
Well, that was very good.
Okay, yeah. So that's you can watch the video replays on a lot of this stuff on YouTube if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a few hundred videos on there, so that's one of the most popular ones, and we always like to replay that just because it reinforces Kenny's philosophy on the 5 critical steps of performance planning. So anyway, right now we have something special. Cari, do you want to talk about our newest tribute to Kenny, I guess?
Yes. So anyway, what Kenny, I don't know, I'll give you a backstory in this. If any of you went to any of Kenny's track events or where he also was a guest at many track days, what we would do is he always he thought it was really hot and muggy and just, in the afternoon you're just thirsty and want something refreshing. So he had me start bringing to the track, we would do root beer floats on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon. So what are you doing, Brad? Are you drinking something? You're giving it away. So anyway, we would do root beer floats. So he's very well known. If you went to a track event with us, you would always get a free root beer float. And he always wanted to have his own root beer, but we never got to it. So Kathy, our famous webmaster, she said, Kenny really wanted that to happen. Let's find the best root beer out there, and let's sell it to people. So in remembrance of him, kind of carry on his legacy. So we put together this really snazzy kit. Do you have the kit or just the glass there, Brad?
I just have the glass here.
Okay,
So.
well, why don't you hold it up? So anyway,
Yeah.
What you get in here is there's a custom root beer, and Brad will tell you a little bit more about it. And you get a root beer mug, so you can buy a single mug and his root beer. It's called Kenny's Racing Root Beer, and then it's totally good. Brad will tell you about it. And then we also have a mug that goes with it, so you can buy 2 mugs, 2 root beers, or just a single one. Brad, you want it? And it even comes with a spoon and a straw.
Yeah, so I just want to say that I didn't have breakfast this morning, so Kenny's Racing Root Beer float is going to be my breakfast today. So this root beer is super yummy. In fact, I have a bottle of it. I'll show you. This is Kenny's own racing root beer. So this is a special brew. These are done in small craft batches. You can see we got Kenny's favorite racetrack, which is Watkins Glen, on there. Got the Kenny Brown signature. We've got a little picture of Kenny Brown on there and a little story about his root beer. And so basically the kit comes in a box and you open it up and you add your favorite ice cream and you make a root beer float. And so this mug is just perfect to hold a 12-ounce bottle of root beer and a nice healthy scoop of ice cream. And so I can tell you I'm not a huge root beer fan, mostly because I don't like the store-bought stuff. I like the original old-fashioned style root beer, and I can tell you that this is an original old-fashioned style root beer. It tastes just like what you would expect it to taste back in the old days when you went into the soda shop or the soda fountain and you got it straight from the man behind the counter. So I am going to put a link down here. I'll put a link in the comment section right now. So anybody who's interested in picking up the root beer float kits, these are kind of a limited edition. If we do another run, we may change a few things up. The mug will stay pretty consistent, but we may change the label on the root beer or something like that. So get them while you can. We've got 30 or so kits pre-packaged that are left over. And
we sold quite a few of them already. So we announced it. When did we announce it, Brad?
Well, we sent out a newsletter on July 4th because we were celebrating drinking root beer floats on Independence Day, which I thought was a perfect thing. And then we did make a post, I believe, on the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society group page. We'll make another post this week on the regular Kenny Brown page, but the link again is in the comments. And yes, Jorge, this is very, very refreshing. I can assure you that you, Jorge, you need one of these root beer floats in your life.
So anyway, we're surprised how fast they're selling out. So if you'd like some, I would click the link and get a couple. And it's a good way to carry on Kenny's legacy. You will be seeing more things like this coming out as far as apparel, hats, and maybe Kenny's coffee. So we're going in that direction. Things that he always wanted to do, we're trying to complete for him. So here we go. So our next guest up, Brad, would you like to introduce him?
Yeah. So our special guest today is Tony Gonyon. Tony's company is Tuners Inc. It's based in Orange Park, Florida. And Tony and I have known each other for years. And Tony also works for HP Tuners. I believe he is there. I'll have to let him tell you what his official title is with HP Tuners. But HP Tuners is one of the premier tuning companies in the United States today. They manufacture hardware, software. They manufacture products for custom tuning. They have a dealer network across the world, basically, that uses their software and their tools to do custom tuning on a wide variety of vehicles. And Tony can explain that a little bit more in terms of what type of vehicles they support and things of that nature. And the reason why we brought Tony on today is because fuel economy is the subject of the year. Gas prices are skyrocketing. Everybody is looking for a way to improve their fuel economy, either in their towing vehicle and their daily driver. We're going to kind of focus a little bit on towing vehicles today because most people are using a diesel truck in many cases to tow their vehicle, or they're using a large gas truck to tow their vehicle. And there's a lot of ways that you can improve fuel economy, either a lot or a little. And as we know, in this day and age, every little bit helps. So Tony, welcome to the show today. Thank you for joining. Why don't you give them just a quick little background on you, who you are, what you do for a living, and then let's talk fuel economy. Okay.
Okay, everybody hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yep. We're
Okay,
good.
perfect. Tony Gonyon here. Been doing this coming up on about 40 years now, which I'm going to talk about some of the older stuff, which applies to today. Started with carburetors and distributors in the early 80s, followed in the fuel injection world pretty much through the 90s and then the 2000s. Started working with most of the manufacturers, SET, HP Tuners, Diablo Sport. I've done training for almost all of them. And I've tuned thousands of cars, and I've never worked a day in my life. I'm retired from the Navy, so I've been able to do what I love every day. And obviously my next thing in life now is I'm actually the sales manager for Ford Gas North America, and got a great team that works for us. And our diagnostic tool as well as a tuning tool is phenomenal. So I'll get to more of that later on. But like I said, gas mileage is a big thing these days. And people call me all the time. Hey, I need to tune my this. I need to tune that. And normally it's a truck. They call, hey, I got an F-150, or I got a GMC Sierra, or I got a Silverado, and I need to pick up better gas mileage. And the first thing I say is like, well, how do you drive the truck, or how do you drive the vehicle? Because that comes into play. Not too many people realize that if you walk in a parking lot at Walmart and you look at all the trucks, and the front of the trucks, they all pretty much look the same, don't they? There's a reason for that. To package the engine inside and to be able to tow capacity, they have to have a certain amount of frontal fascia area, which means that it's a brick when you're driving over 62 to 65 mile an hour. So you'll find that your mile per gallon will increase if you drive less than 62 to 65 mile an hour, because of that wind resistance is not completely destroying it. By the way, if you hear noise, there are cars on the dyno today. So if you do hear that, there are cars being tuned on the dyno. So, but on the truck, back to the trucks, when you're driving at 62 to 65, and we tested this many years ago. We actually tested it and gasoline to see which would work for us the best. And by the way, the 93 octane actually gave us better gas mileage. I know the vehicles will run on 87, but with the timing being retarded, we had less torque. So with the timing being there, we actually made more power. It was more expensive, so there's a slight trade-off. So we figured out the best mile an hour and the best octane to run. So if you want to run 87 and you want to get your best mileage, stay below 62 to 65 mile an hour. Don't run 82 mile an hour if you're trying to get your best gas mileage. If you raise the truck, if you raise it more than 2 to 3 inches, you're putting it higher in the air. When you raise the truck into the air, 9 times out of 10, you're putting bigger tires. When you put the bigger tires on there, your parasitic loss comes in again. You're pushing air against that. So if the trucks are completely stock and you want to pick a little better gas mileage, try the actually speed change. Try, but anything less than 55, it's going to get worse normally. Anything faster than 70 is going to get worse. So you got a range there that you can try it. I've done this many times. I've had customers come back and say, you were right on, it works great, but I can't do that. I got to go 75 mile on the highway. Again, most of the highways now, if you're not doing 70 to 75, you're going to get run over. So if you're towing, though, kinds of play. Normally, you're not doing more than 69 to 72 mile an hour normally in that area. At least I have found I keep it at that point for my best gas mileage. And that comes with your cars as well. Cars are a lot more efficient. They'll actually get efficiency between 70 and 75, 65 to 75, I should say. So it's a little better because of the aerodynamics of the vehicle at that. Now, tuning tricks. We call them strategies. So let's go back and visit the old days. Let's go back way back in the 60s and 70s when we had, we didn't have EFI. We had carburetors and we had, mechanical advanced distributors. Well, on the side of those mechanical advanced distributors, there was a little vacuum pod. And if you guys remember this, there's a little vacuum pod on the side. It was a vacuum advanced pod. And what did that do? Well, there was a vacuum line that came off the carburetor and went to that vacuum pod. So when you planed out on the throttle, in other words, you're like very little throttle, which means you have your best vacuum. That vacuum advance is actually pulling against that little module and moving your advance curve. So let's say that your mechanical advance was 36 degrees. We'll talk about a normal small block Chevrolet or even a small block Ford. So 34 to 36 degrees. If you set your distributor up for that and you were doing 3,000 RPM, that's the max timing you would normally get. However, the vacuum advance module sees vacuum, so it moves the little plate, and that plate advances the timing upwards another 10 to 12 degrees. On the Ford, it was easy to adjust. You had an Allen that you could put inside, and you could adjust that pod. And the best way to adjust it was to drive it and advance it to the point you felt a surge, just a slight surge at that cruise RPM you wanted to drive at or mile per hour. And you would adjust it. You felt that and then turn it back a half a turn to get rid of the surge. Same way today in the fuel injection world. There's nothing different in the same way. The mechanics are the same. How we do it is different. We would do it in the table where our load or our KPA, where we're at, we would adjust the timing for that. So that's one of the strategies we're doing. Give an example. So in the old days, we were driving along there. I could get between 48 to 50 degrees of advance from the vacuum advanced distributor to get my mileage up another 2 to 3 miles per gallon. That was one way to do it. I could take the distributor. If I wasn't racing the car, I could actually turn it up. Now, Chevrolets were a little different because like your ATI distributors and the early ones did not have an adjustable vacuum advance. So you could buy the Mr. Gasket. You can still buy the Mr. Gasket advance module or the vacuum pod. I think I'll remember the part number offhand, but you can Google it. Summit still has them, JEGS, and I know Mr. Gasket still makes it. So there is a vacuum advance module, and you just change it out, and then you can take an Allen to adjust it. Many people didn't know that years ago when I used to recurve distributors on a daily basis. I had them in stock, and I would install them as part of the package deal so that people could adjust it for their best mileage. Or if you had a big cam car and you were driving it, your vacuum advance would go too far and you get that surge driving down the road. So what would you do? People would just block off the vacuum advance module. Well, there goes your gas mileage, right? And then today with $5 and $6, for a gallon of fuel, we want our best. So, pick up 2 to 3 miles of the gallon, and that can drop your monthly pay or your monthly gas output. Normally, $50-$60, which, hey, that's good to go out to dinner at Longhorn one night. Okay. So in the carbureted world, like I said, we had to adjust that. In the fuel injection world, it's a whole lot easier. We can actually log what load we're at or what KPA we're at, look at the advance we're at, and take that in our table and move that table up 2 to 3 degrees until we get that surge, and then back it off 2 degrees or 3 degrees to get where we want for our best gas mileage. It sounds really simple. It really is. And most tuners out there that know how to do this are very adept with doing it. Some of them don't know this. I've taught classes for years where I've actually taught people how to do this. And they're suddenly like, wow, I never knew I could do this. Give an example. I was in Australia. We were talking about this in class, and the guys were like, oh, mate, I get my gas mileage is crappy, man. I'm like, all right, here's what you do. So I did it and showed the guy what to do. And he called, hey, mate, I picked up 2 to 3 miles a gallon, mate. So, hey, right there off the bat, these guys are happy. Your customer will be happy. You'll be happy if you can adjust it, which brings up my pitch. So with HP Tuners, our device read and write the vehicle. You can data log it, as well as you can actually change these things. So you can change that advanced timing. If you are driving a newer Ford vehicle, an 11 up, Coyote, EcoBoost, or whatever, you're going to find that you're going to have anywhere from 16 to 27 mapped points, which means that there's a lot of tables that you would have to modify. It's really simple. If you data log it, you'll actually see the map point that you're cruising in, which is normally designated by your economy map point tables. Those tables at that point, you would just modify your cruise timing on those tables alone, and it doesn't affect your wide open throttle. So you can get your best mileage in those map points that you're cruising down the road in. So really simple for the timing part of it. The next thing would be you start talking about fueling. So gasoline is a lot different than it was in the 70s. Okay. Gasoline, stoic gasoline, no ethanol was 14.64 for a stoic number. Okay. We'll call that lambda 1. I'm not going to go too detailed in this to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So when your lambda 1 was 14.64, that was what we were targeting for our cruise gas mileage. Now, years ago, we would take that, bump it up to like 15.2 on some of the trucks, trying to keep it leaner to pick up a little mileage. Now you can go too lean to where you get too much detonation, even at cruise. So you want to bring it up a little at a time until you see it. In the old fuel carbureted world, we had to take and modify the actual air bleeds to bring that up. And your jets had nothing to do with that. So it was just your air bleeds, which was a little complicated, but you could actually do that with, we would actually use speaker wire. Here's calling the dyno, sorry. That's horsepower right there, right? So we would actually buy different size speaker wire to put in the air bleeds to change the emulsion. Now, that's a little complicated in the carburetor world, but in the fuel injection world, it's as simple as commanding the fuel that you want at cruise. And you can do that in the tables. It's already set up for you to do, and then you can modify it. Targets, I would say anywhere, our gas today, because of ethanol in most parts of the country, and I know heard something from other parts of the world, where they don't have ethanol, 14.64 is still the stoic. If you have 10% ethanol, you're looking at 14.08 to 14.10 for your stoic for 10. And 15% ethanol, you're looking around 13.86. All right. So if you've changed that number in your tune and you want to go leaner when you're cruising, you could actually command a leaner stoic to do that, or you could do it in your lambda table for your cruise. All right. So there's a couple different tables to do that. If you've never done it and you're not up to with it, get with your tuner, talk about it. If you have questions about it, definitely give me a call. I'll be glad to help you with it. That's my job. I get to help people make their cars better. So when you speak of that, so we talked about Spark Advance and the cruise and the vacuum pod from the carburetor deal. We talked about the vacuum or the cruise timing today with our fuel injection world. And we talked about the fueling. So those are the two major things. Now, the next thing comes into play is super simple. People forget about it every day. I just did. I went on a trip and came back, and I was like, man, I'm about 2.5 miles to the gallon down. What's wrong with my car? And I tuned it. So I know everything is right on the tune. So I'm thinking, what's wrong? Simple thing. Kenny said it many times. Check your tire pressure. My tire pressure was down. 2.5 pounds of tire pressure was 2.5 miles to the gallon on my car. Now, if I drive a Focus RS, which gives 26 miles a gallon, it also makes 378 horsepower and 451 torque. So, but I keep my foot out of it when I'm cruising on the highway. And I normally cruise between 70 to 75. That's my best gas mileage in that car. but my tires were low. So I immediately went up, and of course I went to our fleet of vehicles and went around every one of them and checked the tires, and they were all a little low in the middle of the summer. So, hey, my gas mileage comes up. If I pick up 1 to 2, I'm on top of it. So we talked about the spark, we talked about fuel, we talked about the air in the tire. The very next thing, I don't know in what part of the world you live in, but if you have AC and you're driving down the road and there's, you got your windows up, you're going to get your best gas mileage. Even with the windows down and no AC, it becomes a parasitic loss. We did the testing from St. Augustine to Daytona in a good part of the year. It was in Florida, but we did a good part of the year driving, and we tested with the windows down and the windows up, with the AC on and with the AC off. I got better mileage with the windows up and the AC on. So I know it sounds like, well, my AC is dropped, but it actually, the parasitic loss of the windows down, the aerodynamic loss was actually hurting our mileage. We lost roughly about 1.5, but that's still 1.5, and over a period of time, that'd be more. So that's one of the things we actually modified. So we kind of covered most of the bases on those. There's a couple little tricks. When you're using cruise control, your cruise control is a little more aggressive at times. So if you can drive the car plain out on the throttle and use less throttle to move it, sometimes you get better gas mileage. On the Fords, I can speak on the Fords because I don't know how GM exactly did it. On the Fords, Ford was very careful on the cruise control. There's actually a table that you can modify how aggressive the cruise control is in some of the vehicles, like the F-150s. So, if it's a real aggressive, then try just pedaling it and see at that point, and then get your cruise on the straightaways. And then pick your route. If you got to go somewhere where you got to go 45 mile an hour all the time, up and stop and at stoplights, your gas mileage is going to be worse normally. So pick your route. I like using Waze. I use it for my RV. I use it for our cars. Whenever we go somewhere, it normally tells me the quickest route where my most, and you can put in what vehicle you're driving, size of vehicle, truck, car, whatever else. And it gives you, even the height on some of them. So if any of you have an RV Parky is one of the apps we use for that as well. It gives you the best route for your mileage as well. You can check that. So I've covered a bunch of little things here. Brad, anything else you want me to go over on this? Any questions from the guys?
Well, yeah. So we do have a few questions coming in, and there are a few other things that I wanted to dive into. But real quick, for the folks that don't really understand what tuning is, the process for modern day tuning, particularly with HP Tuner software. So what is the process? What do you do? Obviously, you say, Tony, listen, I've got a Ford F-350 with a diesel engine in it. I really need to try to make better fuel economy. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware, the process.
Sure.
What do they need to know?
So first of all, obviously in the days of the new, EFI and fuel injection, it's really simple. The bottom line is this: there's multiple things you can do, multiple companies. If you just want to buy something that's already set up for you, you can get with SC and their pre-programmed. SCT has some of the EO devices out now with the pre-programmed stuff on it that works great. Most of your companies are selling handheld tuners, whether it's Diablo, SCT, and even Hypertech. I mentioned Hypertech because they've been working on some stuff with that. So you will see that the handhelds you could buy and load a pre-can, what we call a can tune into it, that works decently. Normally your mileage will pick up a little bit depending on who was doing the tuning and what they were tuning it for. It's not all about power, it's about efficiency. So with our device, you can do it yourself or you can have a tuner do it. With the device, it's called an MPVI 3, which we just released on this past week. It's our new device. The new chipset solves our chip problem that everybody's been having in the world, hopefully. So we're kicking into motion. We've been on allocation for the past 2-3 months. Now we'll be able to release the Kraken, or we can actually start selling more devices and have them in stock. But the device itself is called an MPVI 3. It's a great diagnostic tool. Basically plugs in the OBD2 port. You can use your laptop to read and diagnose problems with the car. It actually works as well, if not better, than a Snap-on Solus. I know my Snap-on guys are going to beat me about that, but it takes me 30 seconds to plug in, up and running. I don't have to start entering VINs and everything else. It looks and identifies the vehicle, brings it up, and then I can select whatever PID I want to see from it. Now, PIDs are, think of data stuff, whether it's spark or RPM or fuel, your fuel trims, things like that. You can log all that so you can see it. You can see if there's a problem with your car, if you have an O2 not working. If you got a check engine light, you can plug it in and actually check what the check engine light is telling you. It will tell you the codes. Okay. If you have a pesky check engine light that keeps coming on and bothering you, you could turn it off. I recommend fixing the problem, diagnose and fix the problem, but you have that control. If you don't want to do it yourself, like I said, you can contact the tuner and make a pull on a dyno here. You can contact the tuner and have them do that for you as well, but they can remote. Because you have the device, you could send them the file, they can send it back to you, and you can, load it yourself. We can go one step further with our new device with MPVI 3, as well as something called our RTD, which is our remote tuning device. Using something called the Tune Delivery Network, which is a cloud network. You can use your phone. There's an app on your phone. You can plug it in, set it up, read it, look and diagnose, trouble codes on your phone. And then you could actually send the file to your tuner and the data log. They can modify it, send it back to you, and you upload it from your phone. No laptop needed. All right. So the TDN is our newest device, newest setup. It works great. iPhone, Android. I use it on my vehicles. I can change my tune from my phone, and I have a laptop. So I'm spoiled because I can just do it from my phone. If you're at the track, and this is important, if you're using Track Addict and using the other things like that, you can use your phone through your RTD or your MPVI 3 to start and stop your logs. So if you go to run on there, you can start your log, leave the phone in the car, you make your trip, you come back, you run your race, you come back, you stop the log, you hit the button, it uploads, it goes to your tuner, or you can plug your laptop into it and import it to your laptop and look at your log yourself. So technology is coming a long way. We got great videos out on MPVI 3. We got some tutorials coming out, and we're working on some end user stuff for the Tune Delivery Network as well, for the end user to be able to see and do stuff with their own device as well. Devices everywhere, Summit, Menards. I mean, we have all these wholesale companies are buying and selling the units itself. Our goal would be to have it in Advanced Auto Parts or AutoZones. That's what I'd really like to see. But right now, your wholesale like Summit and Jags, guys, you can snag the devices and go from there. I did say Jags. I don't know if Jags has them yet, but I know Summit does. Or you can contact the tuners, or you can go on with something with a tuning school. You could check with the tuning school out of Tampa if you want to learn how to do some of the stuff. And I'll give them a big promote here because I used to work there and I wrote the Ford curriculum for them. They have schools. So if you can order a book online, you can actually look at the book, you can play with it and learn the process to log your car, to change the tune in your car at that point. And don't tell me you're too old. I've got guys, I got 80 years old, great customer of mine. I tuned his car. He wanted to learn. I set him up with the stuff. Not only did he go to classes and learn, but he tuned his car, his son's car, and his grandson's car. Okay. So that's an awesome deal right there. So for someone that says, I'm too old. Nope, you're not too old. And you're not too young. I've got people in their 15, 16 years old that learn, and they're tuning cars themselves as well. So it's not hard. We can help you with that. The tuning school can help you with that. If you just want to have somebody do it, tuner shops can do it, whether it's Tuners Inc. or other companies. We've got a great network of people. Lund Racing, Palm Beach Dyno, VMP, Lethal Performance sells a product. All these different companies out there are out there promoting or selling our product, and all of them are very adept at tuning the vehicles. Depends on what you want to do with it. So, Brad?
Okay, yeah, so that's a great explanation of how modern day tuning works and the devices. And so we do have a few questions that I wanted to get into, assuming that we may run a little bit late. I want to make sure that we get the questions answered. And then there's a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about related to fuel economy and just get your thoughts on those. So I'm going to go, I'm going to start down the list.
Hey, Brad, before you go, I came on because I thought, Tony, is there some place they can get a hold of you or the products that you sell?
Absolutely. So my wife runs Tuners Inc. Tuners Inc. is out of North Florida, Orange Park, Florida area. 904-276-RACE. 904-276-RACE at 7223. That's the number for the shop. And of course, I'm going to promote them because we've got great guys here that work in the shop doing all the tuning AJ from Anonymous Calibrations, who's on the dyno right now. He's actually tuning a Saturn Sky with an LS swap. So that's what the noise you heard in the background.
Love that dyno sound.
Yeah, so
dyno, it's just wonderful.
So I figured, I was like, you'd be able to hear it. So yeah, but that's a daily occurrence. AJ's a great guy here doing all the stuff on the GM stuff. I carry all the Ford and Dodge stuff when I'm here doing it. And we can definitely help out product wise. I will tell you, due to the chip shortage, the MPVI 2s are gone now. You still can find some of them. Lethal Performance still has some. Summit still has some. If you have a dealer account with Turn 14, you can probably get some. The MPVI 3s are coming out. They'll be basically in the retail world in August, September. Probably in the beginning of September is what we're looking at right now. But there is product out there. If somebody needs it, we can get you the right person. You can get a hold of me through that. Or if you need to go hold of me for HP Tuner stuff, my email there is simple. tgonyon@hptuners.com. I've got technical guys that work for us that handle stuff, and I've been technical for years, so I probably 9 times out of 10 answer your questions if you have it, and I can help guide you to the right product for what you need.
That's awesome. Okay, Brad,
Okay.
I'll let you continue on.
Yeah, no, that was perfect, Tony, and thank you. I put your email address for Tuners Inc. and then the email address for HB Tuners as well, and we put your phone number up in the comment section, so everybody should be able to filter through the comments, and they've got 3 different ways to contact Tony now. So we've got some comments, some questions. Right, Sublette, who has been pretty active this morning, he says that he is literally wearing his HP Tuner shirt right now. So he's obviously an existing HP Tuners customer, and thank you for your loyalty, right? He also is a fellow shipmate. He was a gunner's mate aboard the USS Austin. So I'm sure that's a ship that you're quite familiar with. Tony may not have told everybody what he did, but he spent most of his time in airplanes, I believe in P3s, P8s, maybe, not sure, but he's a submarine hunter. So he's the guy flying through the air, looking for the bad guys in the water and protecting us from them. So here we've got a good question from Greg Drake. So Greg, he is an Academy alumni member. He went through the Academy just recently, and he has a Kenny Brown equipped Mustang. It's an S197 Mustang. I think it's an FR500 car actually, but he tows his car to the track with an F250 diesel, and he's towing about 9,000 pounds. And if I'm not mistaken, and I have to remember from my days at SCT, we did a lot of diesel tuning, and a lot of our customers wanted improved fuel economy from their diesel vehicles. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, but when you're doing custom tuning or OBD based tuning, diesel trucks are typically the ones that you see the best results with in terms of improved fuel economy. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely. So some of the controls are a little different. Obviously, you control the boost. Okay, boost is obviously what comes into play from making the power and efficiency and torque, right? So in a naturally aspirated vehicle, you don't have boost to change, but in a truck you do, and you can bring that boost on a little earlier or bring it on a little late. And the big thing about a diesel truck is you have torque, and if you can modify the shift points and the lockup of the converter with that amount of torque, you can pick up your gas mileage. And that's one of the things that, the manufacturer, the SCT did it for years, Diablo Sport, Hypertech as well. And obviously with HP Tuners, when the custom tuning, the diesel guys out there can definitely set you up with tunes to pick up the gas mileage a little bit. Obviously we live in a whole lot greener and safer world. So the old days of, deleting a vehicle and turn off all the stuff, picking up some is not really going to happen. First, going to cost you a fortune. It's not legal now, and the tuners are not going to do it because they're not going to take the chance of losing their company. So what have we found? And I have an actual 06 F350. Are we on the Saturn Sky again? So it's making like 480 horsepower, by the way. He just showed me a picture. So if you on the diesel world, like I said, custom tuning wise can definitely help out without doing deletes and everything else. You can actually change the boost, the torque lockup of the converters, things like that. And obviously the part throttle emission stuff helps tremendously.
So, Tony, I've got another question for you, and I don't know what year Greg Drake's truck is, but it seems that as you get into newer and newer diesel trucks, at least so I want to go back in SET. Or in my SET days, we did a lot of tuning with 6-liter diesel trucks and 7.3-liter diesel trucks, and you could just make phenomenal fuel economy with those vehicles. But better back then than you get with a lot of gas-powered vehicles today, even. But then we purchased a 6.4-liter truck, which was Ford's newest Super Duty, their newest engine. That was the first engine, I believe, that had the diesel particulate filter on it. And I swear to God, that thing probably got 10 to 12 miles per gallon. And we were able to see pretty good fuel economy improvements just with some simple basic OBD tuning. But it always seemed like you made the best fuel economy when you were making the most power. Does that sound about right?
Well, it is, except for one thing. If you're standing in a throttle all the time, your mileage would go down. But because your efficiency was much better and the boost was being controlled and the lockup of the converter, you're actually going to pick up, 2 to 3, 4 miles to the gallon right off the bat. All right. There's a lot left on the table in the earlier diesels and the later diesels. There's not as much left on the table, but it does pick up. And there's some really adept tuners out there are using our tools as well as other companies' tools. They can pick you up on your diesels. If you're not familiar with diesel tuning, because it is complicated, if you're not familiar with it, seek out the diesel guys and tell them, hey, this is what I want to do. And I want to pick up some mileage somewhere else. All of the diesel guys are all over it. They'll turn the boost up. They can usually set you up with 4 or 5 tunes. We have shift on the fly for some of the stuff now, which requires a switch to do it. Which means that you can drive around your economy mode. And if you need to pull something, you can go to your tow mode. And if, you want to rip up the pavement, you can go to, the ridiculous mode. So yeah, the technology is there to do this. And it works well. My 6-liter, my wife driving, I got to make that. My wife driving our 6-liter gets 19 to 20 miles to the gallon. It's a dually. It is a dually. Okay. I get in it. I can't get better than 17, 18. I drive with a right foot. I'm sorry. So it all depends on how you drive it, but at the same time, it does pick up. And it's an 06 F350, 410 geared. It'll tow a 48-foot trailer full of cars and everything around the world. So it still gets good gas mileage towing.
And so Wright Sublette had a good fellow shipmate. He has a good question. His question was, does HP Tuners have data for tuning the Ford 281 3-valve engines? And so obviously this answer is yes, but really, Tony, I guess HP Tuners and a lot of the manufacturers out there, they have tuning that covers virtually every single engine combination that was produced by the manufacturer, dating all the way back to the late 90s, maybe early 90s?
86. So and some of the software is, binary editor, which is core tuning, Clint Garrity and all those guys, as well as SCT, carry, through the 86 up in their chip stuff. We had to burn chips for them years ago. And I think I went through this in a previous Kenny Brown. I showed you the list of all the ones. Anything 96 up is OBD2. And, pretty much we support on HP side, we support anything 99 up. On the Mustangs, on the trucks, we support 04 up. And some of those are even forthcoming. We're even putting doing the Lightnings in there now as well, that we support that. So 3 valves, absolutely. My wife drives a 3-valve. She has a convertible with 230,000 miles on it. Had hot rod cams in it and cats on it still since day one. And it drives great, still rips down. It's got a Roush on it now. So with her right foot and her driving it, she can get decent gas mileage. Again, I don't get good gas mileage when I drive it. But yeah, so 3 valves definitely supported. Those are super simple. It's the first of the Mustangs that were electronic throttle controlled. And I've talked about it in previous Kenny Brown stuff. And also the fact that, hey, You got the newest, greatest variable cam timing starting out with the new Mustangs as well. So, all of that affects your gas mileage and how you tune them. And there's a lot there you can work with.
Okay, that's great. So we've got Robert Johns. He's one of our alumni members, Academy alumni members. He has the MPVI 2, and his question was, can he upgrade it or trade it in for the MPVI 3? And so I guess from my understanding, and this is my question, is the difference between the MPVI 2 and the MPVI 3. There obviously are changes in terms of the functionality of the device, but the biggest reason why the MPVI 3 came to market is because the chipsets that were being used in the MPVI 2 are now either obsolete or hard to come by. And I'm in the chip business, for the lack of a better term, because we use chips in all the products that we manufacture at JMS. And I know that our product portfolio has changed pretty drastically over the last year, just because we're having to change to different chipsets that we can actually get.
That's it. That we had to change it to get the right. We had to find an avenue to get chips, and we found it. Obviously, he's finding more horsepower. So, but we found some avenues. Our procurement people found it, so they're working through it. And in the meantime, it came into play that we needed to change the device slightly, which instead of changing it, make it a 2++, we just call it an MPVI 3. It is a slightly larger device. It has more memory. It has an accelerometer built into it. Hey, road racing accelerometer. So we got that. There's a lot of things into it. We did not raise the price. Just so you know, we did not raise the price. We actually changed the price. We used to have U2 units, standard and pro. Our standard units were our basic units that you didn't have an analog input, and our pro units had the analog input. We have taken out the pro. We made the standard a pro as well. You just have to buy the pro cable to go with it, which is retail less than $60. So, we've actually gone backwards from where most companies were raising the price on stuff due to inflation. We've actually made the price more economical, in my opinion. And I'm pretty proud of that. Our company is pretty proud of that. We may have to raise the prices in the future with chipset stuff, but right now we're able to help our industry procure stuff at a better rate. So he has an MPVI 2. Is it an MPVI 2 or an MPVI 2 Plus? Realistically, if he has a 2 Plus, there's not a reason for him to really upgrade. And we're not going to do any upgrades. So, we're not planning on doing any swaps or upgrades until after December, January of next year. And then we will reevaluate at that point. We're very careful about that right now because we want to get our devices out there. And really, realistically, most people aren't going to swap out an MPVI 2 Plus for an MPVI 3 if they have one that's working and they don't need to. There's not really a need to. If they really want the latest and greatest, then just buy 3. That's what I would tell you to do. And you're going to have to wait till September. So, at that point to get them.
Okay, perfect. So that's a great explanation, and that's kind of exactly what I thought. We've gone down the same path at JMS, obviously, where the product has been updated, but the cost hasn't gone up, and the functionality is the same or better. So we've got a little, not really an off the wall question, but Jorge. He wanted to know if you work with the MegaSquirt product. He has a PNP2 plug and play ECU in his Fox body, and I'm assuming that you probably have some experience, good or bad, with MegaSquirt, right?
Yeah, the MegaSquirt stuff has a place there. I personally would rather use other ones, and not anything against it. It's just the fact it was more of the original introduction stuff for a plug and play for someone to begin the basic stuff. It's kind of like using, if anyone's ever, and that's going to relate, and I don't want to make people mad, but it's like using Pong. If I'm using a whole thing, like if I'm using a Holly system now, the Holly system is much easier to tune than a MegaSquirt and even the MicroSquirt. But it works well. It has a place. I've tuned it. It's pretty simple to use. The technology has improved. But what I have found that most people are changing to the MegaSquirt and MicroSquirt to control like the Fox bodies when the chip stuff works still great. I've made 1,000 horsepower with a chip vehicle. It drives perfect every day. So I don't think that's always the go-to. I personally would use, in this case, Binary Editor from Core Tuning. I would definitely use their stuff for my earlier Fox stuff because I can tune it live just like the standalone. I can tune it just like the standalone live with a quarter horse from Moats. And I do like that. I personally find that much easier than the MegaSquirt or MicroSquirt, simply because I've been doing it for 40 years. I understand that, but I haven't tuned my MegaSquirt in probably 3 or 4 years, only because all the newer technology stuff comes out. But if you need some tips and tricks, they have a great support group. I think it's a couple of guys out there have really headed that up for the stuff for the Fox bodies. I would definitely do some research on that with them. And it's not that hard. Learn the basics of the tuning. And then the software is just finding the button to change it.
Yeah, perfect. So that's a great piece of information there. Joe Johnson, who's another one of our Academy alumni members, he has a 3.5 liter EcoBoost in his 2018 XLT F-150. It's got a 10-speed transmission. He tows that. He uses that to tow his 2020 Shelby GT350 all over the country, and he does as many or more track days than most people that I know, and he cruises along at about 75 miles per hour. But let's talk a little bit about EcoBoost tuning. How easy or how difficult is it to really, squeeze out a little bit of extra fuel economy in those types of vehicles?
Very similar to the turbo vehicles, but I will just to mention, if he hasn't done it already, buy an intercooler. The intercooler is the weakest link on any EcoBoost vehicle. I think they should not leave the dealership unless they have an aftermarket intercooler. That is the weakest link. And so if he hasn't done it, buy an intercooler. Doesn't need a tune, but it will actually make more power all the time, because once that intercooler gets saturated with heat, power falls off because you have to keep the air cool to add timing to make power. All right. Now, EcoBoost tuning. It is a little more complicated than most tuning vehicles because of the way that Ford did it. If you don't feel like talking to Jake at State Farm at 2:00 in the morning, you can go online and look at the patent. And Ford posted the patent on how they built and set up the EcoBoost stuff. It's really not that complicated. It makes boost all the time. So that's why when you tip in the throttle, it's immediately on. He has an 18, so he has the best of both worlds. Not only does he have direct injection, when he also has port injection. So if you're not familiar with that, port injection has injectors in the intake that sprays into the air path going into the cylinder head. Direct injection has an injector that sprays directly into the chamber, usually from the head, directly into the chamber, doesn't pass the valve, it's straight into the chamber. Now, pros and cons, I'll do this for just a second. Port injection is greater on startup for emissions purposes. Direct injection is better on full power and drivability than the port injection because it's going direct into the chamber. All right. So he has best of both worlds. So he has the fuel system to turn the boost up even more on those, but you got to be careful because he starts turning the boost up. He starts making a lot more heat. Again, the intercooler comes into play. Lockup of the converter, big part of it with the EcoBoost. Lockup of the converter, the shift points with a 10-speed, phenomenal transmission for towing. You can set up to what gear you want it to pull in really well and get better gas mileage with that. So EcoBoost tuning for gas mileage is definitely there. It can be done, and it definitely works. I've had great success, but buy an intercooler. If you want to buy the best, I'll just tell you, Whipple's got the best one on the market, in my opinion. It's not cheap, but it is the best intercooler. So, but there's other companies out there that sell them as well. And that intercooler is the ticket to better gas mileage and better power all the time.
Okay, perfect. So that's again, great information. I'll put again, or I'll mention again, the brand that Tony just mentioned in terms of intercooler is Whipple. And so Whipple is a supercharger company that's based out of California. They're a premium brand product. They're one of my customers. I saw a lot of product to them for fuel system stuff. And again, I'll back Tony up on that. I highly recommend anybody that has an EcoBoost vehicle look into getting a Whipple intercooler. It's bigger, it's better, it helps those engines get hot quick. So that goes a long way to improving the performance, improving fuel economy, and everything else. And Joe said, thank you very much, Tony, for your input there. Okay, so a couple of other things, and so I want to get off tuning briefly and just get your thoughts, because if you just go to Google and you Google how to improve the fuel economy in my Toyota Corolla or my F-150 or whatever it is, you're going to get a slew of potential products out there, and so there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on. You'll see, the first thing you'll see is these guaranteed to improve fuel economy OBD dongles that you plug it into the OBD port and it's like magic. All of a sudden you make more power, or you make better fuel economy. Of course, fuel economy is the thing today. I consider that myself, with the experience that I've had over the last 17 years with the tuning industry, is that's just complete BS. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you get what you pay for. And that's the rule of life, things, get what you pay for. So there's a device that for $60, it'll guarantee like 10 miles a gallon. It ain't going to happen. Okay. So normally the little, somebody has a little piece of bolt that you crimp the wires between your mass air and your inlet air temperature sensor. Those are things that are piggybacks that do kind of they'll trick the computer into a different temperature and things like that, which you don't want to do with a turbocharged vehicle at all. No. But the OBD2 stuff that comes in, normally they'll have a little thing where it changes like inputs, small changes, but it really doesn't make a big difference. Whereas the custom tuning, we can do anything. We could destroy it if we wanted to, because we have, your one keystroke away from disaster at any given time if you don't know what you're doing. But there's a lot of information out there and a lot of tuners and a lot of tunes out there now that work very well. So do your homework on it. If it seems too cheap and it seems too good to be true, it probably is, to be honest with you. I have customers all the time that come in with little piggyback devices and plug-in devices and things like that. And it's like, this one guy came in and said, hey, I have an OBD2 device that, this ain't work great. I don't think your tune will change anything better than that. I'm like, challenge accepted. Yeah. So, I can blow their minds compared to what the little device can just plug in and do. Just so you mentioned, someone mentioned that you mentioned the OBD2 device. There are devices out there for the stop and go, the on and off, for the turning the vehicle on and off. Auto stop, I think it auto start and auto stop. There's devices, we can do that through the tuning ourselves. We can also change calibration speedometer through even your late model EcoBoost through the scanner. It doesn't even have to be flash to do that. So a lot of things that we can do different than just some of the people plugging OBD2 stuff. And again, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. There are some that show a little bit of changes when they do the piggyback stuff, but again, it's nothing that you really can see.
So again, I want to get your thoughts on something else, because if you, let's say I hate to mention names, but so I'll call K&N, or I'll say K&N. You go to their website, or you go to other websites for companies that manufacture replacement air filters, or what's more common today is a cold air kit, and you'll see claims of improved fuel economy 5% or 10% just by switching from a factory style air filter and inlet tube to a K&N style air filter and inlet tube. Have you studied that at all? Is this real? What are your thoughts?
The path of least resistance. Okay, so path of least resistance comes into play. So if you have an airbox, there's a reason that the factory airbox is designed a certain way. Emissions purposes, packaging purposes, and like that. So the aftermarket companies have a better flowing filter that doesn't last as long as a factory. If you have to change it, you have to clean it. Okay, so the manufacturer has certain limitations on that. They have to be able to put the filter in the car and drive 50,000 miles, whereas a K&N probably isn't going to 50,000 miles. You have to change it earlier, so it will flow better. Okay, so it will flow actually better than some of the manufacturer's filters, which in turn is path of least resistance. So there's no more restriction. So when you freer air, it means more efficiency, and it can't pick up a little gas mileage. Normally, your cold air kits will pick up a couple of horsepower, and sometimes it'll pick up just a little bit of mileage, simply because the airflow is cleaner, and freer flowing. All right. Byproduct could be, some customers don't want to hear the sound. Some customers, hear the extra airflow and they're thinking, oh, my engine's sucking a lot more air. It's eating more fuel. And, or they drive it harder because they like the sound. And again, it loses gas mileage. So I would say the Canon kits, will pick up a tiny bit. In an EcoBoost vehicle, it doesn't really matter because your intercooler is your final determining factor. So you could stick a cold air kit out the hood of the vehicle, all right, but when you're driving it, the intercooler is your final determining factor. So I say don't really, if you want to put a cold air kit on it, that's not a big deal, but it's not going to make a gain, unlike the intercooler would. Kind of revisiting that.
Okay, good. So, and then the last thing is, and this is something that you don't see promoted as often, but what about exhaust systems? So the first thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to replace our catalyst. No. We don't want to remove diesel or gas particulate filters on newer vehicles because those are government mandated emissions devices. But once you get past there to the bumper of the car, you've got the tube and you've got the filter, and there are a lot of people who claim that you can improve fuel economy, maybe not a lot, but marginally with going to a freer flowing exhaust system. So is this real or not?
Again, path of least resistance, right? So exhaust, and you can actually go the wrong way. And I'll explain that in a second. So depends on what you want to hear. Some people want to hear a little louder vehicle, so they want to change the muffler and stuff like that. And then or they change the size of it. They think that the bigger size is going to get better gas mileage, and that's not always the case. And I'll explain why. It's actually simple thermodynamics, and I'll explain why. Buy the exhaust that you want the sound to be like. If you want to change the sound, do your homework, listen on the internet, figure out what you like, or find someone that has somewhere to get that. Cat back as we call it. Get the sound that you want. It's your car, pick it, or your truck. Now, what can hurt you? Going too big, and I'll explain why. And this makes sense. If anyone has ever walked up to their car after they've driven it up to the store, and you walk to the tailpipe, just touch the tailpipe. It should be warm to your touch, and it may even be slightly hot. Okay. Now, if you put too big of exhaust on the vehicle and you drive it around and you go back there and touch it, it'll be cold. And it's like, that's kind of weird, but here's why. So as the exhaust is flowing through it, the colder the exhaust pipe is around it, the slower the exhaust will go through it. Okay. It's thermodynamics. So if the exhaust is heated up to the right temperature, then the flow through it is always going to be better. So going too big can actually slow down the flow of the exhaust. Going too small could slow it down as well. So that's why manufacturers spend a lot of time determining the actual heat and the transfer of the exhaust through the muffler all the way out to the tailpipe out the back. Most people don't realize that. So going to a big 3-inch exhaust on your EcoBoost truck isn't going to give you more power or gas mileage. It can actually hurt you because you could actually lose some of the torque because you don't have much of the back pressure anymore. As long as the cats are still there, you're in good shape. But do what you want to do for the sound that you want. Just remember that going too big can be as bad as going too small.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's great information, Tony, and that's just about what I figured you'd say. So, and I'm just scrolling down. It doesn't look like we really have any more questions from the group today, which is fine because we've ran a little bit late already. But I'm perfectly happy with that because I'm always happy to have Tony on. Tony, you're always a wealth of knowledge. You've been a great supporter of Kenny Brown and our whole entire organization and all of our people for just years. And we really appreciate the relationship that we have with you. We appreciate the knowledge that you impart on us as well as all of our Cars and Coffee viewers. Tony, for those of you who don't know, he also does master classes for us during the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Academy, and his master classes are by far and away fan favorites amongst all the students. And we're going to have Tony do some more master classes for us here coming up later on in the year. And we encourage everybody to stay tuned to the Academy announcements. We'll be making some announcements in the coming months. We're reformatting the Academy program a little bit, and we're going to put a lot more special emphasis on the masterclass presenters such as Tony, and we really look forward to that. So we've got some other comments. Just right again, he appreciates your knowledge. He says it's a great discussion today. Thank you for carrying Kenny's legacy forward. Dan Atcher says, thanks, Tony. We've got a lot of thanks, Tony.
Hey, thank you guys. Hey, like I said, I get to do what I love every day. So if I can pass this knowledge on to anybody, that's what I want to do.
It's always wonderful when we have you on, Tony. So I really appreciate it. Brad kind of took the words out of my mouth, so I won't repeat what he just said. But we thoroughly appreciate you being on, and you're always a very popular guest. So thank you. I want to, this is kind of late in the game, but if you joined us late, Kenny, we have come out with a Kenny Brown Racers Root Beer and Racer Root Beer Float Kit. Brad, you want to hold it up? Do you still have your, or did you finish it off? So I wanted to let you know that. And today we are giving away a free root beer float kit. And if you put your name.
So I drank my float.
Oh, okay.
But I still have the bottle.
There you go.
So what happened was the company that is making the root beer for us, they also make the root beer for Cheers, the famous bar in Boston, I guess. And there's a few other companies that they make root beer for as well. But so you can see the bottle. I actually, the root beer float that I had today, I made it with the Cheers brand, but it's very similar to, or the same really as the Kenny Brown brand. So great stuff. If you like root beer, you'll love this root beer. If you're not a huge root beer fan, you will love this root beer.
Okay, so I have a couple other things coming through. So I have to finish my announcement on if you put your name in there and say you want a root beer and give us a like, you will win the root beer float kit. And I have a number right here of the person that will win it. So let's count it right now. Quick, get your entries in. Let's see, we have Fred Francher who wants one, Calvin Goring, Brian West, Don Etcher. Let's see, is that it? Interesting.
Calvin said that he thought that I made my root beer floats with Guinness beer.
That is so cool. So I have the number is, I'm going to stop this since we are over. Number is 5. So the 5th person down that wanted the root beer is, and it's a Facebook user that came in at 11:12. So I can't see your name. If you want to put your name in there, I would appreciate it. So it was at 11:12. You are the winner.
So I might be able to figure out who that is. Let me just, that's somebody who is viewing on the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society group page. So let's see who they are here.
So we have a winner.
I've got a feeling. Well, okay, so I don't know who it is.
Okay, so let me tell you why it says Facebook user on our end. We use a program called StreamYard, and you have to give approval for them to post your name in the what we see. So
I think it's me.
Oh yeah, Bob Jones. I bet it was you, Bob Jones. Okay, Bob Jones, you win the root beer float kit.
Congrats, Bob.
Yes. And so we are going to be giving away more products as we go along. That's one of the changes in the format. So like Tony, if we would have asked him ahead of time, he probably would have given us a free product to give away in a little sweepstakes here. So that's sort of what we're going to be doing going forward. Not every show, but we're going to see what we can do. So Tony, again, we've got a comment. Tony's a great guy. I have known him for many years. Steve Robinson from Niagara.
Yep.
Oh, yep.
About 30 years.
Yep. So that's good. Good. Lots of comments, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. We'll have another live guest on. Next week, we are going to play one of Kenny's encore presentations, and that will be I think it's episode 4.
Episode 5.
Episode 5. We're going from 1 through, so you can see the evolution of where he started with the Cars and Coffee and where he ended up. So that's what we're doing.
We'll do episode 5 next Saturday. That'll be pre-recorded. I've got an event that I have to go to, so I'll be out of pocket. And then the following Saturday, I believe that we are going to be talking tech on safety. So I'm working on that. Right now, safety is always a good subject. For Cars and Coffee, we haven't talked about safety in several months. There's some new products that are out that we want to show to everybody, and we always get a lot of questions. So everybody look forward to that. I'll put the finishing touches on the details for the next live show, and we''ll be sure to let everybody know early.
Gotcha.
Well,
Okay.
great.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, and thanks for a great show. We'll see you in 2 weeks, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.